Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Supp Talk Radio. So today we'll be taking a little bit of a spin and throwing the proverbial supplement book out the window. No pre-workouts, no BCAAs, but we're talking about something just as important: organ health, something that is readily overlooked. But my long-windedness, I am happy and excited to talk with my guest today, Will Whitlock of Leviathan Nutrition. Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on. I know we've been trying to organize this for like the past few months or something, so I'm glad that we finally figured something out and got it done here.
Definitely, and I appreciate it, Will. Give everybody a little bit of your background. I mean, were you an athlete growing up? I mean, what was your growing up, I guess?
Like when I was a kid and stuff?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, I just liked being outside and that sort of thing. I got into lifting weights and everything, I'd say pretty young. Whenever I was like 14, my parents bought like some machine equipment I would see my dad and my brother using in our garage. So like I started doing that because I was always very skinny growing up. So like I wanted to, whenever I started entering high school and stuff, I wanted to get bigger, mostly just like get bigger arms and chest. So like that's all I did for the first like 2 years or something. And then I eventually went with my friend to a gym, the local YMCA. And that was basically the first time that like I ever went to a gym that had like free weights and stuff. And I think the first day I was there, I spent like 4 hours at the gym or something. It's like, I just like absolutely loved it. It was just all very, very fun to me. So like, since then I've just really enjoyed lifting weights, and then later got into bodybuilding. First, because that was bodybuilding contest I went to was in 2006. I met Jay Cutler. He guest posted at the show. He's just an enormous individual. That was my first time seeing like a pro in person. I was like, holy crap, these guys are huge. So since then I kind of really fell in love with the sport and that sort of thing. And then later on, whenever I went to university, I graduated from UCLA in 2013. I majored in chemistry without really a good plan of like what I would actually use that major for. It's just something that I found interesting and I liked, especially the topics of like organic chemistry, because you can see their application on things like developing pharmaceuticals and that sort of thing. So that was always something interesting to me. And I sort of wanted to go into that space of like developing, drugs and pharmaceuticals and that sort of thing. But it was just so much like schooling would be required and all of that. I didn't really care too much for like all of the reading and the academic aspect of it. Like I like more like action and like being in things and experiencing it for yourself. So eventually I worked around like, doing full-time jobs. I initially, my first real job for my major was at Quest Diagnostics, in the clinical research department down in San Juan Capistrano. They have a big like head center there. I worked there for like a year and a half, and then I kind of went back and forth with full-time jobs as like a lab technician sort of role, but like it just wasn't really fulfilling to me. I wanted to do something more. So eventually, fast forward to 2017 is whenever I started Leviathan, which was basically just an idea of something I was doing on the side where, I noticed my first product was Tudka. So like I noticed on the market that there was a lot of, fake Tudka going around or just like very underdosed. So it's just something that I wanted to make for myself and my friends, like, cause I had a few friends who compete in bodybuilding, powerlifting, that sort of thing. So I spent a long time sourcing like the raw materials and testing them out, and discovered that a lot of the ingredient suppliers for that particular ingredient, they'd send a sample and it'd come back testing out like 4%, or like it wasn't Tudka at all. It'd be like another bile salt, one that you can't use as a supplement. So it was very interesting going through that process. but eventually we found a decent supplier. I think our first, the one that came back good was like tested around like 99 or 98.5% or something like that. So eventually I started a product using that ingredient. Sales were incredibly slow, like the first 6 months or a year or something. Like I'd be lucky to make like $1,000 in revenue for the first month. It was just like me and my friends, that sort of thing. But eventually more people caught on. The two major names that started buying my products were Dominic Cardone. He's an IFBB pro, and Jeff Long also. And they actually shouted my company out and like publicly said, hey, this guy's TUDCA is good for people who, a lot of competitors who use that product. He tests it out and everything. So I thought that was really cool. And then, then that's when sales really started to boost from that product. But my actual profits from that kind of product were still very low, just because TUDCA is such an expensive ingredient, and you can't really charge that much for it. But eventually that led me to start developing other products, and then things like Ire. Ire was our second kind of health product, and I started to see that doing really well. So that made me start to think, hey, I can actually do something pretty cool with this, because I had a lot of different ideas, and I just really enjoy researching different ingredients and seeing all the studies of how beneficial they can actually be, and what can happen whenever you combine those. And you can probably make some pretty effective formulas for like athletes who choose to use performance enhancing drugs. That health is constantly a concern for them. So if that's going to help them get their blood work better in check, just feel better, perform better, they're going to become better athletes in the long run. So to me, that was something I was really interested in, being a semi-competitive bodybuilder myself. So I just had that in mind, that if I can make something effective for me, and show that, it is benefiting me, that other people would kind of catch on, and they would find it beneficial too. And then for, that way word would just start spreading, that these are actually products that, my intention is that they're doing what they are designed to do. And in, the case of, we have a lot of reviews and blood work now from people and everything. So it seems like they are doing a pretty good job at that. So, that's what satisfies me and what keeps me motivated to, keep making products. And just, that's always going to be the main focus of our company. But of course, these products can also benefit, people who aren't necessarily competitive athletes, because like we talked earlier, especially with Americans, there's not as much focus on a proper diet, proper exercise, like people should be, which of course they should be doing that on top of, getting some supplemental benefits for your health by taking products like these. That's gonna add years of quality health to your life in the long run. So, I would definitely say that that's important for people. And so, our job is just to help spread that information around, and hope that people realize that and start, taking more control of their health.
Will, did you, as you mentioned, you started the company products for yourself and you started going a little more commercialized. Did you kind of say to yourself, well, listen, this is such a niche market, I'm going to go ahead and penetrate that? I mean, did that come into ideas, thinking that it's such a small niche market that I want to get into it? I don't know if I'm asking that right or not.
It wasn't really my main concern, but like, I don't know, it's just something that I found interesting, and I really thought, because I've never been someone who's taken like pre-workouts or BCAAs myself, and like I'm friends with a lot of like top level competitive bodybuilders and powerlifters, and like that's really not something that's going to make a difference in your actual training or competitive career. But like just the idea behind this. Like if you're able to, push your limits as an athlete more and more, that's something that can really make a significant difference. So that's, what my eye was on, and that was the goal with these products. But then, the more, I think I think it took me a couple of years to kind of realize that there aren't that many companies doing this. And then like I started seeing so many other companies out there doing the same thing, starting to do the same thing, and like making their own TUDCA and being like, hey, we third party test our TUDCA. I'm like, okay, I guess that's a good thing that like, these like big name nutrition companies are starting to do what I started doing. So I guess that's a form of flattery or something.
And it's generally with companies, organ health is an afterthought, because let's face it, 9 out of 10 companies that are launching nowadays, their first product is a pre-workout.
Right.
And it's generally after a couple of years that some kind of organ supplement is maybe their 6th, 7th, maybe 10th product in their catalog.
Yeah.
So, but one question I want to bring in here, and I know we addressed some of it. It says, how long did it turn? Somebody asked, and how long did it take to turn the idea into Leviathan Company, and how hard was it to start?
Well, let me say, we actually opened our site, start taking orders February 2018. I started buying TUDCA and testing it. I think it was the previous June 2017. So it took like 8 months of just, going through the process of like having a product to get ready and that sort of thing. And then when we launched, of course, I was still working full time. I've been actually working full time until a couple months ago. Like I would,
good for you.
I would work 40 hours a week or so, commute to work and that sort of thing. And then I go train after work. Whenever I get home, it's whenever I work on Leviathan or on the weekends and things like that. So, I would say it's pretty difficult to start. But, starting in like after like 2019, our revenue started building up and word started spreading and stuff. It was just a slow process, but I mean, I'd say it's very stable compared to companies that rely heavily on like ad marketing and that sort of thing. I hear of companies spending like tens of thousands of dollars a month on like Facebook ads and that sort of thing. And then they say like, hey, we made 100K this month or something. Like, okay, how much of that is actually profit?
Exactly.
Because they have such massive spending amounts on ads. And then whenever you're selling products like that, you have to continually make sure that your supply chain is in order and that you're not going to run out of stock. Because if you're moving a lot of units like that, and then it also comes to if you're trying to get more unique ingredients and formulas together, there's more time involved with that. So generally, companies like that, they have very basic formulas that they can get done, very quickly and produce very quickly. So that's, another issue that I guess we would have if we were to go that route. But, I've never really spent any money on running ads or things like that. We have our ambassadors, we have our athletes who, they're behind us because they believe in our products. And so most of our sales just come from word of mouth, which I think has been a pretty solid way of marketing and getting sales. I mean, it's just been consistent growth, over the years. And then whenever I started working with Justin and Brady, I think they knew that would be the best approach for a company like mine, because our formulas are so much more expensive. We don't really have the budget for like ad marketing and things like that. So, whenever I started working with Justin, he told me like, we can make something out of this, but it's just going to be a slow road. And, I was fine with that. And, here, I think it's been 2 years since I started working with them. 2 years later, we've really grown. So I'm very satisfied with the results that we've seen.
Now, being a chemist, were you able to test back in the day a lot of the products yourself? Did you have access to the necessary machinery, or were you actually truly sending it out to like a third party?
Yeah, no, I would just send it out. I mean, the places I was working, like I technically could, but like without telling my boss or something like that. And I didn't really want to risk that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, at least I had familiarity with the process, and like, like I would always ask for like the raw data associated with the testing, just so I can look at it myself and, have some sort of understanding of what's going on there.
So this actually came in from our good buddy James over at Impel, and I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's face it. I mean, 90% of companies do not test any of their products. They base it on their contract manufacturer. Why do you test your stuff?
Because I want it to be what I'm paying for, and like I want the product to work, and like for this sort of thing, like if people are getting blood work and they're taking the product, like they expect it to work. So if I have something that's like 50%, only 50% of what it claims to be, and people take that, like people are going to notice. It might not be right away, but like eventually people are going to notice that this product is not really performing as it's supposed to be. So it's really a security. Every company should do it, like bar none. If you don't third party test, what are you in this industry for other than a quick profit or something like that? Which I have a lot of respect for James, and like recently he posted one with his protein that like they actually tested under the mark. So he said like, hey, we're not gonna release this product until we find a proper supplier for this, who can actually pass testing. So I have a lot of respect for that, because that's something that you really don't see. And then you have companies that say, like a lot of companies say that we third party test, but then you go look at their website and where are the test results? They're nowhere. Or like they'll just say like, our products are like 99%, or like they test, but like there's no actual data sheet or like actual third party, data for you to look at. So like all of my third party testing, like we have on our site, like I think it's still accessible. Like all of our previous, over the past 3 years, or 4 years or whatever now, for TUDCA, you can look at all the old test results. And then I always keep the most up-to-date one on the actual product page. So that's easier accessible, for people. But yeah, I mean, it's technically, like an FDA requirement to third-party test also, but no one cares about that sort of stuff in this space either. It's just terrible with how the industry works with that regard. But yeah, I mean, it's like it's definitely mandatory.
So how do you test? Do you get your order and you place your order of however many bottles? Let's just say 500 bottles of X product. Do you just grab one out of that inventory and send it off, or like what point do you test?
Yeah, that would be for the final product testing. We also do raw ingredient testing. So like any raw ingredient that we want to use, we'll get a sample from the supplier and make sure that comes back good for the testing before we even begin manufacturing. That's another reason why if we run out of stock on something, it usually takes a while for me to get it back, even though I ordered, or like we start working on a product months before it actually runs out of stock. It's just, the whole process takes a very long time, with, shipping times and waiting for testing. And if the test comes back bad, you have to go through another supplier and that sort of thing. So yeah, there would be 2 stages, the raw ingredient testing to make sure that the raw ingredients themselves are not the issue. And, because I have so many standardized and very specific ingredients, to make sure that those are coming through properly. And then if those are good, then we continue with manufacturing. And then for manufacturing, we just pull a random bottle and then send that one out for testing to make sure that, the milligram or specified dose is properly done. And then that way you have a way to troubleshoot a little bit too. Like for TUDCA, we've had batches that, the raw material would be like 99 to 101%. That means 101% would mean the raw material we're testing actually tested better than the standard that they're testing against. So that's good. But in that case, you have a raw material that tests good, and then you come out with 280 milligrams of TUDCA per capsule and it's supposed to be 300. That there's an issue there with the manufacturing process, that we can refine that process and try to improve that to get a better result. So that's like we've had that happen before, and we've made changes during the manufacturing process, like add another excipient to help with the powders so that they mix better, especially for something like TUDCA. The powder is so lightweight and volatile, it's hard to get it packed properly into a capsule. Or things like using larger size capsules also help in that sort of thing. So that's another way that you can kind of foolproof your products and make sure that you have the ability to troubleshoot if issues like that arise.
Do you feel, we'll use bodybuilding because I used to compete, and obviously you're an active competitor now. Do you think bodybuilders are getting smarter with having their labs done and everything else? Because we still see deaths, unfortunately. But do you think people are getting smarter now with having labs and whatnot done?
Yeah, I definitely do. It seems like a very big thing now, compared to even like what five years ago, especially 10 years ago. You'd never hear about people saying like, "Hey, my ALT is high" or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it just wasn't talked about. But yeah, especially now. And then with coaching, there's more of a focus on doing things like getting regular blood work. Coaches who can really clarify, like properly interpreting blood work and making recommendations to change things like that. Not necessarily just supplements, but in your day-to-day life, whether it could be diet, it could be stress related, not getting enough sleep, and that sort of thing. So yeah, that definitely seems like a growing trend, and I'm glad that it is. Not just for that allows more supplement companies to take advantage of this sort of space, but also because it's going to benefit people and it's going to make you a better athlete in the long run. You're going to have a longer career if you're healthier, and then your body's going to respond to things like training, calorie surplus, and building muscle much better if it's in a healthier state versus if your labs are very, very bad, and you're under a ton of stress, your body is under a ton of systemic stress, like you're just not going to be in a good environment for training properly and recovering, that sort of thing.
And also from the absorption aspect, just we're all worrying about getting maximum absorption with nutrients and food and everything else. And if your organs aren't working at full capacity, you kind of shortchange yourself.
Yeah, and then also things like digestion, which is also why I came out with my digestion product, and a lot of people have really been talking to me about the benefits of that. But yeah, I mean, if digestion is kind of where it all starts. If you have poor digestion, that's going to leak down into other aspects and affect blood work there and affect organ function, and have a kind of cascading effect of negative things that you don't want.
For the I'm going to say the normal person, not the athlete or someone that's using a lot of supplements, whether it's illegal or illicit or illicit, one way or another. For the average person, do you suggest someone doing a cleanse like on your products, and how often?
It kind of depends. Or do you mean like digestive wise, or just like what products you're taking?
Let's just say in general, the average, maybe the weekend gym warrior that's maybe not doing pre-workouts and proteins and everything else, that's just trying to better themselves.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's kind of something that you would take on a case by case basis. I think, like if they're having issues with digestion, like they're eating a lot of food or something like that, I would say, try going fasted for like a day or two, or just for most of the day, try to clear things out, and then, see how you respond to that. But yeah, as far as like supplements and like, health oriented supplements that are meant for daily use, it's kind of tricky because I think especially when you have multi-ingredient formulas, like I'll use berberine as an example for iron. Like it takes 5 weeks, like most of the studies show that it takes 5 weeks of consistent use to kind of build up to an optimal fasted glucose level. So that's where it would be most effective, if you take it for 5 weeks and then kind of plateaus from that point. But I think if you use it for it was I think 6 months of constant daily use, it would actually start to slowly decline. So I think there are cases like that, and probably as a best way of caution that, taking, I would say for all health supplements, maybe you have a period of a week every, I don't know, 4 to 6 months of just not taking the products, and then start taking them again. Maybe there is some sort of adaptive mechanisms that your body undergoes with constant use like that, because it happens so much with, taking pharmaceuticals and that sort of thing. So we could probably assume there's something like that going on. So that'd probably be the best way to approach it. Take a week off. It doesn't have to be that long, and then start taking again. Because then I think your body kind of, it's going to be able to respond to those ingredients a little better. That's usually what I recommend. There's not really concrete data, especially for we have so many different ingredients and that sort of thing. That's usually my best recommendation, just as a general term.
Sure. And folks listening at home, watching this or listening on the replays, obviously Will is not a doctor. This is obviously, he's not a doctor prescribing anything. So I just want to set that out first and foremost. Okay.
Right, yeah.
So I want to ask you a question, Will, about your kidney formula, because I was watching, I don't remember if it was your YouTube videos or maybe something on Instagram, and something that you brought up with your kidney formula, that it can decrease high creatinine levels, if I remember that correctly. Because I, speaking for myself, I do have high creatinine. It's hereditary. Okay. So my question is, again, not asking for professional advice, but just asking friend to friend here. Okay, if I were to use a product like that, or someone that has high creatinine, and let's say it does bring it down, okay, is it something that would someone want to use your product consistently in that case, or to keep the levels lower, or to kind of be cycling something like that as well?
Yeah, I think we would look at how long you used it to achieve a lower level, and then I think the best recommendation would probably just to reduce to a sort of baseline dose after that. If it's hereditary, it might be a little different, but usually, it depends what kind of factors are affecting that also. So if you don't stop the thing that's affecting that in the first place, I'd recommend continuing to take a product like that. Yeah. But yeah, usually in that case, I would say reduce the dose, but I would still keep it in, just to kind of keep things, keep creatinine at that level, as a long-term sort of practice.
Okay, I appreciate that. We had a couple other questions here. Will you be branching into other categories like pre-workout, protein, things like that? Or is your meat and potatoes going to be organ health? Or digestive? I want to say general internal health.
Yeah, I'm not really 100% on that. I would say if we did, it'd be a couple of years out. There's still things that can be done within the health space that I want to specialize on and focus on. And another thing is for these kind of products, I always want the products that I come out with to be unique. I want something to be unique about the formulas, not just, has a cool label and that sort of thing. Whenever I look at pre-workouts, I see just the same exact formula duplicated by 10,000 different companies. I have no interest in doing that. It's just it has to intrigue me. If I find a new ingredient that, that no one else is using, that I see that actually has, studies showing it to be beneficial for things like blood flow or nutrient delivery or something like that. That would be somewhere that would be a starting point for me to say, okay, maybe at this point I can make something cool that, that could be in this space, but it's not really something I look into very much at this point either. So right now, I don't really have any current plans.
Gotcha. So I'm going to rattle off some different things here. Let's see. Where's the other one? So someone had asked what the hardest part of competing is. And I'm assuming they're saying maybe the dieting, the training, stepping on stage. Like, I guess when you look at that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, especially for me, because especially my last show, I really pushed the limits on dieting. Yeah, it would definitely be dieting. It just makes everything harder. I started dieting like 24 weeks out, because I had a lot of body fat to lose. So, most of it was pretty smooth. It was a pretty easy process until you get to like that last 8 weeks,
Yeah.
where, you start to realize that you're getting pretty close. And like, if you think you're out of shape, at that point, you're going to have to really step things up and that sort of thing. But just from dieting for that long, it starts to get hard. You start to lose strength. You start to really crave food, through constant hunger, your energy starts to plummet and that sort of thing. And when you're at that point, it really affects every other aspect of your life. Like just walking up the stairs, some days is like very difficult because you're just so deprived of calories. And it just makes everything, you're able to become so much more stressed about things that would not normally stress you out. So it's very important at that part to be to manage your stress properly, and kind of like you don't want to you like your only focus is the show and like getting that done, and then what you're going to eat afterwards. And because it's very you've been having those cravings for months at that point. So yeah, I just it starts with the dieting, and then that kind of stems out to every other aspect of your life at that point. Because when your body is at the point that you're so lean that like your body basically like thinks it's shutting down. So it's a process of like survival at that point. So it's a very extreme type of environment that you're in.
Someone else had asked too on that. How close do you stay to your competition weight?
Not very close.
So you go off season, typically off season.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the person too, and I think it's not really. You can't really say a specific number for the individual. It also depends on what division that you're going to compete in. So like. Yep. My goal is to compete in bodybuilding. So like, I don't want to stay in the 170s. Like I competed at 170 my last show. I'm at like 200 right now. I'm still, fairly lean, but like I plan to move up to the next time I compete, either the light heavies or the heavyweight class, which would be, somewhere around like 190 to 200 pounds on stage. So, take a couple of years off, and then, this off season, last off season, I got up to 240. And, I came all the way down to 170. So this offseason, I'll probably get up to like 250, 260 eventually. It just be slow. And I don't really want to get quite as fat as I got last offseason. But I mean, some people do pretty well like that. Like some people will go over like, 60 pounds over their stage weight just because like they need that caloric surplus to build that muscle in the off season. And then if you're able to hold that whenever you come down, for competition, you can end up gaining like, 15, 20 pounds in a year of actual stage weight, which is, that's very impressive. So like you ask those people, was that worth it to get so heavy? It pays off in that case. But, if you're something like a classic physique or physique competitor, you'll probably stay a lot closer to competition weight. Especially if you're already nearly capped out at that weight class for classic physique, if you probably stay within 20 pounds of that competition weight, and you'll still be pretty lean for that. So I know a lot of people who usually stay in that range, because they're pretty close to like their ideal weight that they want to compete at, and in the first place. So,
how tall are you?
5'8".
Okay. Yeah, but light heavy would probably look awesome on you. I mean, you look great in the middle, but light heavyweight would probably do your frame.
Yeah,
really well.
Yeah, and I was very like depleted for this show.
Yeah,
I think I lost a bit of muscle. I think like I really was pushing the deficit and the cardio at the last 4 weeks. I really wanted to get striated glutes, which I don't know. I was pretty close, but I think it was just a fullness issue. I lost a little bit of size that you couldn't see those striations, and the muscles as full as they should have been. So next time around, I want to probably not focus quite as much on conditioning and just come in fuller. Because I think my condition was good enough for a regional show, and I'm not really going to worry about coming in super shredded until I actually get to the national level.
Is that what you want to do? Hey, maybe get a pro card or kind of grow towards that? Or
yeah. I mean, that's whenever I got into working out in bodybuilding, whenever I was 16 years old, I always wanted to be a pro bodybuilder. That was way before they had in bodybuilding was the only division in men's. That's always been my focus. I don't want to compete in another division because I always just wanted to compete in bodybuilding. Over the years, I kind of realized I don't have the genetic potential to be like a great pro or things like that. But I mean, that's still a goal of mine. I still have a few good years before I'm too old to, continually make progress and, really pushing heavyweight in the gym. So I do want to see what I can get out of it. So that, turning pro would be kind of like the ultimate goal. My goal would just be get as close to that as I possibly can.
Is there a physique that you really like? Did you say, "Oh, I'd love to look like that"? Either back in the day or now?
Let me think. There's a lot of them. I guess
like mass monsters. I mean, ideally, what would like a Jay Cutler or more like a Dexter Jackson or
kind of like in between. I mean, it's hard. I think yesterday watching the Arnold, the guys like Ian Valère, like a physique like that would be like ideal for me. I think it's kind of still too big to do something like classic, but he's not like like walking around on stage at 300 pounds or something like insane like that. But that would be the goal. But I mean, that's very far away. So we'll see what happens. It's just something that you take day by day.
So as we wind down here, Will, here's one that you can answer or not answer. But someone wants to know: is it hard being such a goddamn beefcake?
I just want to know who wrote this.
One of the guys. So I'll share. One of the guys at the nutrition store. I forget who, but one of them did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, those guys are pretty big, man. I mean, Jacob and they're all. I think they all have bigger arms than me, so I don't know why they're asking this. They're just very humble over
there. But Will, again, I really appreciate your time this morning. I know kind of a little bit of a time crunch, but I'm glad we were able to finally catch up. I'd love to have you back so we could talk more about bodybuilding and training and everything else. But as we wind down, let's end on tell people where they can find you, any information you want to share, maybe new products in the pipeline. Close us out, my friend.
Okay. So as far as new products go, we actually have a joint product that we should be taking pre-orders in the next week or so. We should have it, I'm hoping between 2 to 3 weeks. It just depends on how long it takes to ship, really, but should be shipping up next week. So as far as new products go, and then after that, I'm working on like a fish oil type of formula that's it'll be a little bit different than the fish oils that you see typically, though. So it'll be pretty unique. That'll probably be another 6 months or so. So I don't really want to go into explanation too much on that. But yeah, as far as social medias, we're very active on Instagram. You can find us at Leviathan Nutrition. It's all one word on Instagram, or you can follow my personal account, which is W Whitlock Fitness on Instagram. That's usually our two big avenues that you can find all of our other social media things like YouTube and that sort of thing from.
So again, in wrapping up, Will, I got a lot of respect for you because you're testing your products. Again, as we mentioned earlier in the show, not a lot of people do that. And you're living the dream, brother, after opening a company and two and a half years later. And again, understand this is your sole bread and butter now. You don't have a side job anymore, do you?
No. Yeah. I mean, I do some like coaching, but it's a very minimal. It's kind of just something I like to do. And I want to improve on. So yeah, it's very nice to have your own schedule. I mean, there's a lot of, stress and, different things to worry about as a company owner and that sort of thing. But to me, like you're never taking a day off basically. But like to me, I would much rather have that way of living than to be stuck in an office 5 days a week for 40 hours a week. It's very different. I guess some people are okay with that kind of structure, but for me, yeah, I really enjoy what I do at this point. It's been a long road of building up to that, but it definitely pays off. So it's nice.
I envy you, my brother. But folks, if you're listening to this on Apple iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and you're able to leave a comment, suggestions, anything whatsoever, please do. As always, we appreciate your time. And Will, thank you again for your time this morning.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, if you want to talk bodybuilding, training, whatever, next time, I'm happy to.
Perfect. Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Thank you. You too.